Welcome to Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. My name is Bornancin, a serial salesperson and entrepreneur, and I'm sitting down with the world's best sales experts to share their top secrets to sales success. Who is Lee Salz? What is your background? How'd you get started in sales? And then what is the secret, like the success and failure that you've learned throughout everywhere you worked in sales? So literally. Oh, go ahead.
So that's a big question.
Totally.
So there's two big ones.
Yes.
One is in being insatiable when it comes to learning, and that's something I built sales teams in many different industries, and when I would go on a sales call with one of my salespeople, the prospect or the client never felt like I was there as in a supervisory capacity. They felt like they were almost getting free consulting. And it didn't matter what salesperson it was, didn't matter which company it was or what industry. The first time a salesperson would take me on a sales call, they'd come out and they'd say to me, "How do you know all this stuff?" Because I took the time to research whatever was important to the people we were selling to was important to me. And, for example, when I built the sales team in the technology training industry, I never learned the courses from a technical perspective. In other words, I didn't learn how to deliver the courses like an instructor. What I did learn was the IT people we were selling to and the people that did take the classes, what was important to them? So how did they make an informed decision on a training course? And what was the right way to approach it? Because there were different styles, whether it be an in-person class or distance learning or online learning. I mean, there were so many different choices. So whatever was important to them became important to me. When I built the sales team in the employment screening industry, which was drug testing and background screening, I was never a scientist at the laboratory, but I did know intimately the process for how a drug test was to be administered and the consideration points for a company if they didn't have a drug testing program and how to put one into place or how to take that program to the next level. When we talk about background screening, there's so many different choices out there of how to put together the right package. I made sure that I knew enough to help my clients so that I could help them make an informed decision. So that insatiable learning, if you're new in sales, what I would say is don't stop learning. You never know everything because every industry changes, every company changes, how people buy, when they buy, why they buy, how they buy is evolutionary. So if you aren't insatiable in your learning, you're destined to become dated. So if you are a top salesperson, for example, in the car industry, and you just said, well, I know this, I'm a top person, and 20 years has gone by and you're scratching your head going, I don't understand. I used to be so effective. Well, this little fad came along called the internet and put a lot of information at the hands of buyers. And so in the past, if you go back 20 years or so ago, the car salesperson was Yoda. They knew everything. And buyers had to rely on them for information. And because of the internet, they don't need car salespeople for that information. They can get it themselves. So if you haven't evolved your approach in selling, you'll say, boy, I'm the same person I was yesterday, but I'm selling a lot less than I was before. It's because your knowledge and skills have become dated. So that's one. Did I give you enough there to work with?
Yeah. Always be learning, it sounds like.
Yep, absolutely.
I love that.
Wake up every morning. If it's important to the people you sell to, if it's important to your clients, it should be important to you.
Wow. And then, how do you fight getting complacent? Like, because let's use you as an example, Lee. You've written 5 books, and
Hmm.
by the way, like you're a webinar expert, and I'm trying to get more into webinars. I'm excited to learn,
Hmm.
pick your brain on that later. And I know you've got
Sure.
sales differentiation, the secret to winning more deals at the prices you want, which is
Hmm.
amazing. And anyone that hasn't picked up the book, go pick it up right now. You've been an expert, and what are the strategies that you've leveraged to stay humble and stay hungry with learning?
Um, Part of it is the way I'm wired. I'm very competitive. Not so much with other people. I'm competitive with myself. I'll tell you a personal story. A year ago, New Year's Eve day, so December 31st, 2018, I'm training in the gym, and I've been competing in powerlifting for a
Damn,
dozen years. No, gosh, it's longer than that.
it's
Since
amazing.
2000. Since 2000. And I'm on track to set some new state records. And I'm having a great workout, and then everything changed. I'm getting towards the end of my workout. I had done a set of overhead tricep extensions, 10 reps, said, all right, let's add 10 pounds. And on the second rep, I thought I got shot. I completely ruptured my tricep.
Oh shit. Oh god, dude. Oh, that's brutal. I'm
And
so sorry.
yeah, so proceeded then to have surgery. I was also told my powerlifting days were over because once you do it, you're susceptible to doing it again. But I also believe that doctors are very conservative and they don't know your drive, your internal commitment to come back. And I turned 50 on Valentine's Day. And I said to myself, I'm going to
Oh,
bench
congrats.
315 again before I turn 50. On New Year's Eve day, 2018, so I'm sorry, that injury was 2017, 2018, walked in the gym, did my warm ups, and popped up 315 like it was nothing. And that's just a function of how I'm wired. You tell me I can't do it, I'm going to do it tenfold.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's
And
amazing.
and that's something I find when you look at what makes salespeople successful. One of the keys in that recipe is having that drive. And if it's the sales manager that has to kick you in the pants every morning, you should really think about doing something else because sales isn't for you. You've got to wake up hungry every day and do the things that it takes to be successful. I mean, when I returned to the gym, I was benching the bar for I can't even tell you how many months. That
Dude,
45-pound bar,
I'm dealing with
20,
that right
40
now, by the
reps.
way, because I was
Are you?
wakeboarding. I was doing a back. I love the gym too, my man. And I was wakeboarding, doing a backflip,
Hmm.
and I ripped my rotator cuff. And I literally
Oh,
no. They said the same thing. No lifting for 6 months, and I'm just getting back in the gym now. And I
yeah.
feel defeated, but like I'm staying motivated to like do the low weights and just get through it.
Yeah, the best was so going from, and my sport was a bench press. So winning competitions at the state level, and then all of a sudden I'm benching and I'd look next to me and there'd be women just blowing me away on the bench. I was like, I think I want to go home.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you competed with the bench press. So
Yeah.
you tear your tricep. They
Yep.
tell you you're out,
Yep.
and you're like, look, yeah, I have to deal with this injury, but I'm gonna build back up. I'm gonna get back to the gym again.
Yeah. I mean, there was I licked my wound just like anybody else would. For the first little bit. But people would say to me when I went back to the gym, at first I was allowed to just do cardio, and my buddies would see me there, and they said, "Okay, what's next?" Because they knew I'd be competing in something.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
They knew I wasn't just going to roll over and do nothing. There was going to be something else I was going to compete in. So that's and I think that's really important in sales to have that drive. I'm sure you've heard this before. Wall Street, when they're hiring, those firms are hiring. One of the things they look for: did you play a sport in college?
Yep.
Because if you're an athlete, at the collegiate level, you have drive. They can't teach you drive. You either are driven or you're not,
That's right. That's so hard.
right? And so when you're interviewing sales talent, and I know when I did this for 20 something years in building sales teams, drive was one of the things I knew I couldn't teach. And when I was looking at that candidate on the other side of the table, I was looking to see did they have that as part of their makeup.
Wow. And what do you do, because it's tricky, right? Like you and I are highly driven.
Hmm.
What if you're not driven, but you want to be driven? You're in sales, you're having a tough time getting highly motivated, but you want to be, and you want to be driven. Like that could be a secret in of itself, right? Like
Hmm.
luckily you and I are wired, but what if you're not wired? How do you get wired in?
Well, you can't teach passion, right? You either are or you're not. And when I first got recruited into the drug testing industry, to build a sales team there, I looked at that. I'm like, really, drug testing? It looked boring. I couldn't get excited about it. And one of the things I've told every employer over the years, I told them didn't matter to me how much money I was making. If I ever needed an alarm clock to get up in the morning to come here, I'm going to hand you the keys and say thank you very much and go do something else. There had to be something to get me fired up. Now, it was on me to find that passion. And once I started getting into that industry and finding out all the opportunities that we had to help Fortune 1000 companies protect themselves, protect their workplace, as well as help the employees that they had, all of a sudden I got really fired up about that, and it was contagious. My salespeople felt that energy from me, and that helped them become more passionate. So, back to your question, what happens if you don't have it? Make sure you're working for a manager who does, and feed off that energy. But what you can
That's a
also
great
do,
recommendation because they could
oh, thank you.
basically like get you. I feel like I'm that for my team, right? Like I'm super hyped up, energized. I work 15, 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. And everyone feeds off that energy and that positivity and that training that I provide. Um,
Yeah, and so I bifurcate the expressions sales manager and sales leader. They're used as synonyms. To me, sales management is building the framework and the structure to help salespeople be successful. But sales leadership is all about the inspiration, the excitement, the passion, so that people want to follow that process, that framework that's been built. And I think, at different times, companies need someone that's more on one side or the other.
wow. Yeah. So sales management is all about like KPIs and metrics and the kind of the coaching
Well,
and
not
then
just the metrics, but putting the structure in place. In other words,
the
one of my
processes.
favorite questions to ask CEOs, I'll say, if, let's say they have 10 salespeople, if all 10 of your salespeople just came to you and said they had a great first meeting with a prospect, and in a B2B sale, you're usually not getting a deal in that first meeting, what would you know for sure happened in that initial meeting? And you know what the most common answer is I get?
What?
Not a darn thing, because they've never prescribed that initial meeting. And it's so foreign. If you talk
Wow.
to people in operations and you say, so if you hire 10 people to manufacture your widget, would you let them do it any which way they want? And of course, they say no. Well, why would you do that in sales? If you have 10 salespeople, why would you let 10 different sales calls take place for the same type of prospect? It makes no sense.
No sense.
So, right, so the sales management side is to prescribe the way in which that initial sales call is to be handled. Now, I'm not a script person. I'm not saying write a script and have everybody memorize it. But if you reverse engineer that initial sales call and say, it was a great first call if we accomplished what, and identify what that portfolio is. And then from there, say, what am I going to ask? What am I going to say? And what am I going to do to achieve each one of the objectives? And you document that and share that with those 10 salespeople so everyone's on the same page. Now, when someone comes to you and says, I just had a great first meeting, you can hold up this piece of paper and say, I know exactly what you did.
Wow. Yeah. I completely agree. I love it. I think that makes total sense.
So you're obviously looking for ideas for the book. Are you publishing this podcast as well? Or is this just to capture information for the book?
Yeah, both. We're gonna publish the podcast. No, so and that was great. And by the way, we skipped the intro and went right into it, which is fine. So I'll probably do the intro just to have it on audio, so we have it. But no, this is solid. So and when so you were the DNA stuff, not the DNA, but the drug stuff that you were doing when you were selling for them, did you have to quit?
Workplace drug testing.
Yeah, the workplace drug testing. Did you have to quit because it was just hard because you had to do the alarm clock, or were you saying you didn't need it?
No, I didn't. I'm saying in each place that I worked over the years, when I took the job, I would tell the business owner or the CEO that if I need to use an alarm clock to get here, I'm going to hand you the keys and say thank you very much and go do something else. No, the drug testing, no, that was not the case.
That's
Actually,
awesome.
was lucky enough that I only had that situation once where I said, you know what, not for me.
Yep, makes sense. And I know recently, kind of before you were doing, the revenue accelerator and sales sales architects, and you came out with the new book, Sales Differentiation,
Mm-hmm.
19 powerful strategies to win more deals at the prices you want. When it came to, you were selling virtual business training, right? Business expert webinars. So what did you learn?
Yeah. So that's a company that I built.
Yeah, which is awesome because I'm actually just starting to get big into the webinar game, and I love automatic training and automatic webinars. Like when you were doing the webinar business, like what was the biggest thing that you learned from your successes and failures there to maximize sales?
Yeah, so there's a lot. So I didn't wake up and say, boy, I want to build a webinar company.
Right. And by the way, just so the audience knows, Lee Salz was at Virtual Business Training, Business Expert Webinars. He ran this business for almost a decade, up until December 2016. So like he's probably learned a lot. I'm excited to hear about how you got into it and what you learned doing that.
Yeah. So I was asked to deliver a webinar on behalf of an organization on hiring and onboarding salespeople.
Awesome.
And there were about 5,000 attendees. Excuse me. Sponsor paid, I think it was $5,000 or $10,000.
And that's your first one? The first webinar you do, 5,000 people are attending.
Well, I was the speaker. It was on behalf of another organization.
Totally. But I'm just saying that's
right?
a huge webinar, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. And you know what I got paid?
Nothing. A lot?
No, I did get paid. I got paid exposure.
Good. Oh,
I got paid exposure.
Awesome.
Yeah. And see, I live in Minnesota, and what you may not be aware of is people die of exposure here. So that's not really the best compensation. And so I said, boy, I really like this webinar thing. And this is a time, understand, this is before the social media.
Yeah.
So I said, all right, let me find a venue where I could deliver training, not webinars. So often you find these webinars that are infomercials, that I wanted to deliver genuine training virtually. I wanted to get paid for it. I wanted to get on someone's public schedule. I wanted someone that could help guide me and help me put these together. And it didn't exist. And I said, I can't be the only one that's looking for something like this. And that's why I built Business Expert Webinars. And so I was the one blazing the trail through the wilderness. and documented it and chronicled it in a book called Stop Speaking for Free, The Ultimate Guide to Making Money with Webinars.
Yeah. And
And
that's why I
the
figured
reason,
to say, hey, was it for free? Because I knew the book. That's funny.
yeah, so these were attendee funded webinars, so people paid to attend them,
Awesome.
and it worked very, very well. It was a great experience. I can't tell you how many wonderful speakers I met, because I built this public schedule, and we had 250 speakers at any given time delivering courses through us. It was absolutely wonderful. And you said, what did I learn? What I learned is, again, back to where we started. Don't stop learning, because there was nothing to rely on. I couldn't go into Google and figure out how to do this. I had to be the one to go out and not be afraid to make the mistakes and try different things and see what worked and what didn't work.
Right. Wow. Yep. And then, so you had to not be afraid. And then like, what'd you learn selling it? And, I guess like some of the things, the secrets that you had building that business that led to your success and led to leveling up to launch, the next thing.
Yeah, so one of the biggest ones, and this was foreign for many of the speakers that were in the program, is the program description. They were so used to writing a couple of bullet points, and because again, in free webinars, people would just sign up. They may or may not attend, but it was easy to get signups. When you're talking about people dropping $100 for a 1-hour program, you better have a packaging online that shows that the course you're delivering is worth it. And sometimes I had to counsel speakers. Every speaker went through an interview process with me, and I reviewed every course. And I'm talking about before it was ever going to go live on the site. And I frequently would say to speakers, you know what? Great program, but this belongs in a free space, because you're not giving them the information. All you're doing is making them aware. And if your webinar is strictly an awareness webinar, no one's going to pay you for that. If you're going to teach them how to do something, now we've crossed to the side where people will pay to attend.
Got it. So the free webinars, if you're doing a webinar that kind of tells them like, hey, you need to use this formula, but I'm not going to tell you what that formula is or how to execute it, you're saying do that one for free. But if it's like actually giving them not only the formula, but also the implementation of that formula, that's where you start charging.
That's where you have the opportunity. You have to have the strategy behind what you're doing. In other words, when I would ask speakers, tell me where these virtual programs fall in your overall business strategy, a lot of times they didn't have the answer. And so there was a lot of counseling work that I had to do with speakers and help them figure out if it makes sense for them. A lot of times when I had the interviews with speakers, I would push them and say, why do you want to do pay to attend or attendee funded webinars rather than the free ones? And it wasn't uncommon that the conclusion of the call was they were going to go do free ones. And I was okay with that, because I needed a particular speaker type that had an agenda that was in line with the vision for our firm.
Wow. Yeah, that makes total sense. That's awesome. So you do the webinar thing, and you're kind of educating the audience on how to do these ultimate money making webinars, right? And then you
Right.
decide, look, I'm gonna move into that, focusing on sales management, sales coaching. Like, walk us through, the past few years and some of the secrets that you've learned over the past few years.
Well, Sales Architects was in parallel with Business Expert Webinars. It was because Business Expert Webinars was not what I was planning to do. I just saw that there was a gap, there was an opportunity, and stepped into it. But I've been doing the consulting and speaking for, how long is it now? Almost 15 years. So I've been working with companies,
Wow.
helping them build scalable sales forces, and I was doing that in parallel with business expert webinars.
That's incredible, man. That's a secret in and of itself. Uh, okay, so walk me through like what you learned, throughout that process with sales architects and
Which process?
oh, I mean, like, give me some great tidbits on, like sales differentiation, your book, right? You give out these powerful
Yep.
strategies, right? But like,
Yep.
what are the secrets and the strategies that you've learned coaching all the sales management companies? Or
Well, I'll tell
failures
you
too.
the
Like, did you have a massive failure? Like
yeah.
I've had massive failures. Like, as an example, when I was selling at Google, I had successes and failures. Like, they gave me one or two secrets to kind of level up. Same with
hmm
IBM, like to level up. So just curious if any stood out to you, any big successes or
Well, we all
failures.
had the big one that got away, so we all have that experience. But talking about sales differentiation, which it's my latest book, it's already hit all the bestseller lists. The end of December, Top Sales World named it as the #2 sales book for 2018. And the one that was #1 was a name you mentioned before, Keith Rosen's book, which is a sales management book. But
Yep.
sales differentiation, back to what did you learn, is when you look at sales differentiation, there's two parts to it. There's sales differentiation around what you sell and sales differentiation around how you sell. And it's very common for me when I talk to executive teams that they are so passionate about their differentiators. And at the same time, they and their salespeople are completely ineffective in helping prospects, the people on the other side of the desk, become as passionate as they are about those differentiators. So if you can't build that passion around what your differentiators are, might as well not have them, because the conversation is going to lead one place, and that's price.
Yep.
So I do a lot of work with clients, helping them understand what their differentiators are and putting together communication strategies to position them in a meaningful way so that someone on the side of the desk sees what they see.
Okay. I'm taking notes. That's awesome to see what they see. I love that.
The other side is sales differentiation around how you sell. Every interaction between seller and buyer provides opportunities for salespeople to be different, to provide meaningful value that the competition is not. And I'm talking about from the very first phone call to that first meeting to how they submit a solution, whether it be a proposal statement of work, all the way through when they ask for references. And then when you get into when you actually land the account and talking about account management. See, I find a lot of people don't know the difference between customer service and account management. It's all one big bucket. And in my mind, customer service takes place, and forget the department or the people, the function itself. That takes place whenever a client asks you for something. And the expectation is that you're going to be responsive and get it to them accurately and timely. But account management is the proactive side, which is the value that you provide beyond the products that you're selling to that client. So this isn't them asking for something. This is your way of managing an account to provide additional value that builds loyalty so that they want to continue to buy from you. Coming back to the very front side, when we're trying to get in the door, and you talk about learning moments, I am never found a salesperson who knows who their true competitor is. And I mean, I've
Interesting.
delivered talks for umpteen years all across the country and in Canada, all different size audiences, and I ask, who's your biggest competitor? And they'll throw out all kinds of names based on the industry that they're in, and I'm sure those are worthy competitors. And then I tell them there's one that's bigger. And then someone will say, oh, the old sales trainer one, the status quo, the choice to do nothing. which is also a formidable competitor, but there's one that's even tougher. Do you know who that is? Have I
Uh,
stumped you?
yes. Tell me.
Okay. All
Tell me,
right.
tell me, tell me.
It's every other salesperson calling the same person you are trying to get a meeting.
Ah,
In the
that's awesome.
in right? I mean, we're egocentric. When we think about competition, we just think about our world. But the
So
people we're
true.
calling on
Wow. So
have
true.
large responsibilities, so they're getting phone calls and emails and direct mail from salespeople representing everything within their sphere of influence and beyond. And there has never been an executive in the history of business who had the sole responsibility of meet with salespeople every hour on the hour. It's never happened. So we're competing with all these salespeople that are trying to get a meeting, and there's no one whose sole job it is to meet with salespeople. So we have to be different in our initial approach so that we can get in the door. Because if we can't get in the door, there's no meeting. No meeting, no proposal, no win, no conversation about forecasts or commission checks. All starts there.
Unbelievable. I love that. I never, you know, it's funny, Lee, like, I never thought to think about we're competing for their attention. We're competing against all the other salespeople that are trying to sell them something.
That's right.
Unbelievable. So
So you think you
what's
may
your
have 5, 6, 10 competitors in your industry and you think that's a small subset. It's not. It's hundreds, if not thousands, of salespeople banging on these people, and it's so easy to go into voicemail and click on delete or go into email and click on delete. So you've got to be different.
It's so easy. I mean, I do it every day, hundreds of emails, hundreds of voicemails, you know, like
Yep.
because being the CEO at seamless.ai, dude, I get 50 to 100 calls, and I mean, we're a high growth startup. We're not even
Mm-hmm.
100 people or more yet. Like,
Right?
and it's so easy for me to delete, ignore, block. They go into the dreaded deletion zone. So what is the best way, in your opinion, your sales differentiation expertise in the book and everything,
Mm-hmm.
like, and maybe this
Yep.
aligns with the secret. I don't know yet. I know the audience is dying to know what is your top sales secret, which we'll get into, but how the hell do salespeople stand out? Like, knowing that, what is your
And that
recommendation
is
for them?
and that's my little tagline. I say sell different. And I mean that in two ways. The
That
way that you're
first thing I
selling,
thought about that, by the way, right when you said that, was the Mac Think Different ad. Sell different.
okay, yeah, yeah,
The Apple, I don't know if you remember those with like Einstein and
yep,
Gandhi and whatnot.
yep, that's it. And so it was brilliant back then when they talked about think different, and that's one of the things that I preach as a responsibility that salespeople have is to help buyers think differently about the solutions they have or could have. See, I mentioned before when we talked about cars that there's this perception that there's this fad called the internet and that buyers are very, very well educated. Yet there's a question I've asked salespeople again, another question I've asked salespeople over the years, and that's this. Who knows more about the world of potential solutions in your industry? You or the people you sell to? And I've never had a single salesperson say to me, "Oh, the people I sell to, they know much more than I do about what I'm selling." Never had a single salesperson say that. So even though there is this internet, it's still it's still an opportunity for us in sales to help people make informed buying decisions because every salesperson's in agreement. We know more than the people we sell to about the world of potential solutions in our industry. Now, the way that we do that, if you come marching into an executive's office and lecture them on all the things they don't know, it makes for a very short meeting. No one wants to be lectured. Do you have kids?
I do not, but
Okay, I've got 3, and they're all teenagers. And even when they were little, they don't like to be lectured. So no one at any age likes to be lectured. So we need to be creative in the way that we handle those meetings and help them see that there are opportunities that they don't have. And the way that we do that is with questioning. And when you look at the questions that salespeople ask, they're usually tunnel visioned. So they agree with me that we know more than the people we sell to about the world of potential solutions in our industry. But the questions that they ask focus on pain or challenges. In other words, what they perceive could be better or different. But if you say that the people we're selling to don't know what we know, how can we rely on their perceptions? That's flawed. It's like asking a blind person, what do you see? And that's
Ah,
why,
that's so
right? And
funny.
that's why so many salespeople, they struggle to get in the door, or if they are lucky enough to get in the door, to engage someone and intrigue them, because they ask questions. And I'm not saying they shouldn't probe for areas that someone perceives could be better or different, but oftentimes, let's say, for example, what you're selling has the ability to improve speed of a widget, and you're the only ones that have this. And you say, well, what are three things you'd like to have today that you don't have? No one's going to say, I'd like the widget to be faster, because they don't know it exists. And that's why we ask, and in Sales Differentiation in the book, I talk about this concept of a positioning question, which is an open-ended question designed to help someone think differently about the solutions they have or could have. I'll give you an example. In the state of Minnesota, every homeowner and every business contracts for their own trash removal. So on Wednesday mornings, there is a parade of garbage trucks coming down my street representing every hauler you can imagine. Each one seemingly doing the same thing, pulls up to the home, arm extends out from the truck, grabs the can, lifts it up, dumps the contents into the truck, puts the can back down, truck drives away, and you get a bill at the end of the month. Well, the CEO of one of these companies reached out to me and said, Lee, I believe we offer something different. And I was intrigued because I'm watching this happen going, okay, you got me. I want to hear it. So they went through a program with me on sales differentiation strategy. And he was right. That one of the differentiators they had a lot of them, was that they had this truck called a Can Be Clean truck, which is twice a year. This truck follows the garbage truck and cleans your garbage cans. Only ones in the state of Minnesota that offer that. Isn't that cool? They clean your garbage cans.
Wow, dude, that it's so funny because like I totally need that. Like I never thought about that service, but I desperately need it.
So their salespeople were struggling with, remember I said before about being able to build passion with someone on the other side of the desk. So for their residential salespeople, these are people knocking on doors and making calls. They didn't know how to engage someone. I mean, could you imagine someone calling you saying, hey, I want to talk to you about your trash service? You know, for the most part, everybody was doing seemingly the same thing. Well, we developed a positioning question that they asked after they introduced themselves. It was the next thing out of their mouth. When's the last time you had your garbage cans cleaned? Because we knew they never had unless they did it themselves. And if you've ever cleaned your garbage cans, you know what a miserable experience that is.
Oh, it's terrible. Terrible.
So right in that first moment, we've helped someone think differently about something as simple as trash, not because of something we've said, but rather a question that we've asked. Are you familiar with a product, Dude Wipes? You ever heard of
Oh,
that?
yeah, I heard of it. Was this on like Shark Tank or something? Where did I see
It
this or
was on
hear?
Shark Tank, actually. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was. And so the couple of guys that are selling wipes, and they're focused on men. And so they're trying to disrupt an age-old issue, which is the way we clean ourselves after going to the bathroom. And the price of their wipes is something like, I forget, something like 5 or 6 times the price of toilet paper. But here's a question the CEO asked. If you got chocolate on your arm Would you wipe it off with a dry paper towel and feel clean?
Interesting. No, I would not.
It's an ugly, nasty metaphor, but you sure get it, don't you?
I do. I totally get it. Oh
Right?
man,
I
I get
mean,
it.
and that's when you talk about helping someone think differently about solutions they have or could have. That's what I'm talking about. That type of question, which gets someone to say, you know what? Yeah, you know what? If I got trouble, no, I want some type of water or something on there to help me clean it off. And that's what they want you to think about.
Wow. So, and when it comes to thinking about Lee, you know, because you cover in the book, which I've got copies for, and our team's got it here, which is awesome. And it's funny because like when I've got sales differentiation and sales leadership right by each other, and even sales secrets from the top 1% is red.
Yeah.
I love the red book cover. Like I just love red for books. So like it's funny because you, me, Keith, all the books are red. It's awesome. And I'm looking at all three copies and I'm like, oh, this is funny. And like you covered 19 strategies, right? And I know you've learned a shitload throughout your career in sales and marketing and differentiation and all of the above. Let's go into the number one thing that the audience is dying to know, which is sales secrets from the top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. Lee Salz, if you had to break it down to one top sales secret, if you could only tell yourself one thing when you first started in sales, or you just hired a big group of salespeople, you could only give them one piece of advice, one piece of paper with one thing written down, what would your top secret be? What is that one thing that you would tell the audience?
It's sell different.
Sell
Look at what you
different.
sell and how you sell. And for the aspects that you have around what you sell, make sure you have a strategy to communicate it and position it so to build the passion with your prospects so that they see what you see. And on how you sell, look at every interaction you have between yourself and a prospect and say, what can I do differently than my competition that the people I'm selling to would find valuable, would find meaningful, so that they'd rather buy from me than them.
So that they would buy from you versus them. So, and for the audience, there's I know in the book you go over 19 different ways. Can you like just give the quick Twitter version of each of the 19? Because now the next question I have is, okay, well, how do I do that, right? Like, how do I differentiate what you sell, how I could be different than the competition? So I don't know. Does it make sense to just quickly like give examples of the different strategies that you leverage in the book?
I think just reciting them without context, it would be. I mean, we've been talking around
about
them.
All of them. Yeah, of course.
We've been getting into that. But the book is in two parts. So half the book is around sales differentiation on what you sell, and the other half is sales differentiation around how you sell.
How you sell. Yep. And then, okay, well, let's talk about that. What you sell and how you sell.
Yep.
So if I want to differentiate what I sell, feel free, a few more examples just for the audience, because I know I'm going to get hit up via 100 different emails. Hey, listen to Lee. Listen to you guys. I love this sell different. That's amazing. Give me some more examples.
Sure. All right. Imagine we sell copiers for a living.
Yep.
And today's a very exciting day for us because our R&D team, after several years of work, has just produced the first copier in the world that prints 50 Shades of Gray. It's the first one ever that can print 50 Shades of Gray. And tomorrow you have a meeting with a CFO to talk about your new copier. Would you be talking about the 50 Shades of Gray with that CFO? Gosh, I hope not, for so many reasons.
Right. You just saying it, I was like so bored. Like I don't care about the color gray. I don't even use that color. So that feature,
Right.
doesn't even excite me.
And a CFO doesn't care about color shades and hues. CFO cares about the financial impact that this copier will have on the business. Now, later that afternoon, you're meeting with a VP of marketing, less concerned about the financial impact that it has on the business, really wants to know about color, shades, and hues and other functions around that particular copier. But if the following day you're meeting with an IT manager, again, talking about this exact same copier, doesn't care about financial impact, doesn't care about color, shades, and hues, does care about reliability, security, integration. 3 completely different conversations, but what we sell remains the same. See, I'm one of the people that says if you have an elevator pitch, you're making a huge mistake. And that is contrary to every book that's ever been written on sales. Of course you have an elevator pitch. My issue is not with the concept of an elevator pitch. It's thinking of it in the singular sense. That doesn't matter who you are. You're going to hear the same spiel. And I just gave you an example with this copier where what we're selling isn't changing, but we need to have 3 very different conversations if we're going to be effective in selling that box. And that's an important consideration when you're looking at the what you sell side of the equation. Not everybody cares about every differentiator you have, so you have to think about what's most important to the person I'm meeting with and make sure the information that you're sharing is most of interest to that person.
Yeah, that's incredible. I love it. Makes total sense. Makes total sense. And it's a different way. It's a different way to sell differently.
Exactly.
And then, so that's what were the 2 options again? So how you sell and how you, what you sell and then how you sell.
There's sales differentiation on what you sell and how you sell.
And then the how you sell is just the examples that you just provided, like using all these different approaches.
Right. It's how you sell is, okay, so that initial phone call, how are you going to be different than the thousands of other salespeople calling on this individual? When you're having that initial meeting, I always told my salespeople over the years, one of the criteria for a great meeting is at some point in that meeting, the person on the other side of the desk leans over and says, you know, no one's ever asked me this before. That's how you knew you were providing value and differentiating yourself and helping them think differently about the solutions they have or could have. And that doesn't happen accidentally. You've got to plan your meeting to achieve that objective.
Wow. I love it. I love it. And, for the audience that's tuning in, Lee, sell different. You have to differentiate with what you sell and how you sell, and how you can be different than the competition through both what and how you sell. And you have to be different. It's an amazing sales secret. I know Lee covers 19 powerful strategies to win more deals at the prices you want by selling differently. So you got to pick up a book. But where can the audience, Lee, learn more, follow you, subscribe to more from you?
Very simply, go to salesdifferentiation.com so you can learn about me, the book, and then in the menu there you can learn all the different things that my firm Sales Architects does to help organizations win more deals at the prices they want.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, thank you so much to Lee for joining us today. And thank you, audience, for joining us for Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. Pre-order your copy today at secretsalesbook.com. Order your copy today at secretsalesbook.com. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Sales Secrets from the Top 1%. We release new episodes every Monday and Thursday, so make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube to never miss an episode.